Every time someone tells you happy birthday, they are celebrating something that doesn't actually exist. The phrase +1 sounds like progress, like something new has been added to your life, another year gained, another step forward in the long story of your life. But birthdays are built on a quiet illusion most people never question. When a candle is added to the cake, it feels like something new has been placed into your life, but nothing is actually being added, because the year being celebrated has already been spent. The celebration simply marks another portion of your life that has already disappeared forever. As his friends sing around him, Daniel prepares to blow out the candles, unaware that the moment represents a year that will never return. When people say +1, they believe life is increasing. The phrase sounds positive, hopeful, like something valuable has been gained. It suggests progress, growth, and another year added to life. But the math behind birthdays tells a very different story, because every birthday contains two movements happening at the same time. 1 year is added to your age, but at the exact same moment, another year disappears from the time you have left to live. As Daniel blows out the candles, the celebration reaches its quiet climax. The smoke drifting into the air lasts only seconds, but it represents an entire year of life that will never return. Birthdays feel like progress. They give the impression that life is moving forward, but birthdays are not signs of progress. They are actually markers along a countdown. Humans celebrate birthdays because they represent survival. Each birthday feels like proof that another year of life has been lived. But if life has a beginning and an end, every year also makes the remaining time smaller. Most people avoid thinking about this truth, so the celebration becomes a way to focus on joy instead of the silent countdown happening underneath it. Age is often described as just a number, but age is actually something far more meaningful than that. Age is a measurement of how far someone has traveled across the timeline of their life. Imagine life as a long road stretching from birth to death. Every year represents another step forward along that road. Some steps are filled with joy, others are filled with struggle, but every step moves a person further along the journey. After the celebration ends, Daniel sits quietly looking at the extinguished candles as the room slowly grows silent. But the strange part is that the world itself has not moved at all. The buildings remain exactly where they were built. The oceans remain where they have always been. The planet continues spinning through space exactly as it did yesterday. From the outside, the world appears stable and unchanged. Yet inside every human life, something is constantly moving forward. Seconds quietly turn into minutes. Minutes slowly become hours, and eventually, years. And slowly, the timeline of a life continues unfolding. We often say that time moves forward, but the truth about time may be far strange. Some physicists describe the universe using a concept known as the block universe. In this view, the past, present, and future all exist at the same time. Time may not flow like a river the way we imagine it. Instead, the entire timeline of the universe may already exist as a fixed structure. What we call the present may simply be the moment we are observing. Our consciousness moves along the timeline, experiencing one moment after another. What we experience as the present may simply be the moment our mind happens to be observing. In this perspective, time is not moving. Instead, the thing that is moving is you. Human life can be imagined as a point traveling across a timeline that already exists. Every moment of a person's life already exists somewhere along that path. Each experience, each memory, each future event has its own position along the timeline. What changes is not the timeline itself, but where our awareness is located. The present is simply the point our consciousness is experiencing right now. Behind us lies the past, and ahead of us lies the future. And as life continues, our awareness simply moves from one moment to the next. The world itself does not slowly disappear over time. Instead, human lives are the ones moving through it. Mountains remain standing for thousands of years. Oceans continue moving long after individual lives have ended. The environment appears stable and unchanged. Yet each human life passes through this world like a brief visitor. People arrive, experience moments, and then continue forward. In a quiet forest, the world remains calm and unchanged. And slowly, each life continues its journey through the world. From a higher perspective, a human life can look very different. Instead of separate moments, an entire life could appear as a single thread. Imagine observing a person's life from outside of time. At one end of the thread lies the beginning. From that point, the thread stretches forward across many years. Childhood would appear as one small section along that thread. Adulthood would appear further along the same path. And decades later, old age would appear near the end. Every stage of life would simply be different points along the same thread. Many people feel as though time is rushing faster and faster. But the feeling that time is rushing may come from how we choose to live inside it. Modern life is often filled with stress and constant pressure. Schedules, deadlines, and responsibilities fill every day. And slowly, time begins to feel like it is accelerating. But when people slow down, something interesting begins to happen. Paying attention to the present moment changes how time feels. The same minutes suddenly feel slower, deeper, and more meaningful. Daniel sits quietly on a park bench, watching people rush through the city around him. From childhood, most people are placed onto a predictable life path. For most people, that path begins with school. Children spend years sitting in classrooms learning how the world works. They study subjects, memorize information, and prepare for the future. Year after year, the routine continues. The goal is to prepare children for the responsibilities of adulthood. Education provides valuable knowledge and important skills, but it also prepares people to enter a structured system, a system designed to guide people into a life of work and survival. Eventually, that carefully guided path leads to employment. Adults step into the workforce searching for stability. For many people, work becomes a daily routine. Jobs provide the income needed to survive. That income pays for housing, food, and transportation. Many people work primarily to create security and stability. For most adults, this phase of life lasts for decades. Day after day, the routine repeats itself. For many people, this working chapter lasts 4 or 5 decades. And this is where the central trait of modern life begins. In the modern economy, survival depends on money. Money pays for the basic needs of everyday life, but money is usually earned in one specific way. Most people earn money by selling hours of their time. Each workday becomes a small exchange. Hours of life are traded for financial income. Time and money are placed on opposite sides of the scale, and slowly, pieces of life are exchanged for stability. Over time, those hours slowly begin to accumulate. Most people work around 40 hours every week, and week after week, the routine continues. Slowly, those weekly hours become hundreds. Hundreds eventually grow into thousands. Across decades of work, the number becomes enormous. Paychecks arrive regularly as the reward for those hours, but the time spent earning them quietly disappears into the past. And slowly, those working hours accumulate into years of life. And many people only realize this truth much later in life. By the time they look back, many years have already passed. Large portions of life have already been spent working. Another long workday comes to an end. Late at night, Daniel remains in the quiet office building. The building grows quiet as the workday finally ends. Outside the window, the city continues glowing in the darkness. Meanwhile, the clock continues quietly moving forward. And slowly, the realization begins to settle in. As people work harder to improve their lives, something unusual begins happening in the background. The cost of simply living begins to rise. At first, the changes appear small. Rent increases quietly over time. Food becomes a little more expensive each year. Transportation costs begin to climb as well. Even everyday necessities slowly demand more income. Individually, the changes seem small, but together, they quietly reshape the cost of life itself. Economists have a name for this pattern. They call it inflation. Inflation means prices slowly rise over time. What once cost $10 may cost 20 years later. Money gradually loses some of its purchasing power. The same paycheck begins, buying fewer things. At first, the change is difficult to notice, but year after year, the difference grows, and slowly, the economy begins to demand more effort for the same results. Every hour Daniel works is exchanged for money. That money is meant to support his life, but when prices rise, the equation begins to change. The same hour of work buys slightly less food, less housing, less security, and slowly, more hours are required to maintain the same life. The quiet trade between time and survival becomes more expensive. Over time, maintaining a normal life requires more effort. Housing becomes more expensive. Healthcare costs continue climbing. Education demands larger financial commitments. Transportation becomes another growing expense. The structure of life slowly becomes heavier to carry. Each generation must work slightly harder. The difference is gradual, but the pattern continues year after year. Eventually, many people feel as though they are running faster, but the destination never seems closer. Promotions may arrive, income may increase, yet the pressure often remains, because the cost of life rises alongside income, and the race quietly continues, running harder, just to remain in the same place. The modern system quietly guides most people into the same repeating cycle. From childhood, the path appears clear and predictable. People move from school into work, from work into bills, and from bills into decades of responsibility. Over time, the routine begins to feel normal, so normal that it feels like the only possible way to live. Every evening, thousands of workers leave their offices at the same time. The city moves like a machine, following the same rhythm every day. The most energetic years of life often begin with ambition. In their 20s, people have energy and curiosity. Creativity and motivation are often strongest during these years. But these years are also filled with financial pressure. Work hours begin to grow longer. Ambition slowly turns into responsibility. Dreams are often postponed. Even late at night, the work continues. The most vibrant years quietly pass inside office lights. Debt often begins as a small obligation: a student loan for education, a loan for transportation, a mortgage for a home. Credit cards fill the gaps between paychecks. Over time, these obligations accumulate. Each debt represents future labor. The more obligations someone carries, the harder it becomes to step away from the system. For many people, work becomes necessary for survival. Income pays for housing. Income pays for food. Income pays for transportation. Income pays for healthcare. But these necessities require continuous income, which means returning to work again tomorrow. And the routine repeats. Work becomes the engine that keeps the cycle moving. At first, the routine feels temporary, just a phase of life. Weeks turn into months, months turn into years, years turn into decades, and suddenly, time feels different. The dreams of youth begin to feel distant. The city continues moving around him, and he begins to wonder how much time has quietly passed. Rising costs quietly increase the pressure on everyday life. The change rarely happens all at once. Instead, it happens gradually. Rent rises, groceries cost more, transportation becomes more expensive, healthcare costs climb higher, and the pressure slowly builds. Even when income grows, it struggles to keep up. To keep up with rising expenses, people work harder. Work hours grow longer. Responsibilities increase. Some people take on second jobs. Others take extra shifts. Free time becomes harder to find. The goal shifts from freedom to simple financial stability, and the cycle continues. Over time, the price of the same dream grows larger. A home becomes more expensive. Education costs continue rising. Healthcare becomes harder to afford. What once required 5 years of work may later require 15. The cost of dreams slowly expands, while the hours required to reach them increase, and the distance to the goal becomes longer. People work more, yet many feel less free. Technology promised easier lives. Productivity has increased, yet pressure continues growing. Comfort often comes with hidden costs. The cost of that comfort is time, hours exchanged quietly, life slowly traded for stability. The treadmill of the economy continues moving faster. Technology makes life faster. Expectations rise. Workloads increase. Workers manage more responsibilities. The pace never slows. The environment stays the same. Effort increases, but the system keeps moving forward. True financial freedom begins with a simple idea. Most people believe wealth means having large amounts of money, but money alone does not guarantee freedom. The deeper form of wealth is control over time. When money controls time, life becomes a schedule. But when time is controlled, life becomes a choice. Financial freedom begins when income is no longer tied only to hours worked. At that moment, life begins to change because time slowly returns to its rightful owner. One powerful strategy is learning to buy back time. Many people spend every dollar on consumption, but another path exists. Instead of consuming every dollar, some people choose to invest it. Investments are seeds planted today. Over time, those seeds begin to grow, and money slowly begins working on its own, allowing time to slowly return. Investing transforms money into something powerful. Income begins producing more income. This process is known as compounding. Growth builds slowly at first, but over time, it accelerates. Each year builds on the last. Eventually, income no longer depends on hours worked. The cycle of survival begins to loosen, and freedom slowly becomes possible. Another powerful strategy is reducing the cost of survival. Modern life encourages constant consumption, but more possessions often require more work. Some people choose a different path, a life built around simplicity, fewer expenses, fewer obligations, and more freedom. Sometimes simplicity provides the greatest wealth. In the end, the goal is simple: reclaim ownership of time, because time is life. When people control their time, they can focus on meaningful experiences, on creativity, on relationships, on personal growth, because the ultimate wealth is the freedom to choose how life is lived. The present moment is the only part of life we truly experience. The past exists only as memory. The future exists only as possibility. But life itself unfolds only here. Every breath happens now. Every thought happens now. Every experience happens now. The present moment is where life becomes real, and it is the only moment we ever truly live. Eventually, another birthday arrives. Candles are placed on the cake. The familiar song begins again. Happy birthday. Another year added to age, but another year has already passed. The candles glow quietly. The flame flickers for a moment, and another year quietly becomes part of the past. Life was never about the number of years gained. Years are only numbers. What truly matters is how each moment is lived. Moments filled with experience. Moments filled with meaning. Moments filled with awareness. Time does not belong to us. It simply passes through our lives. As we move along the timeline of life, the world is not rushing forward, and time is not chasing you. The universe remains vast and steady. Planets continue their quiet motion. Galaxies stretch across the cosmos. The universe does not rush. It simply exists. Human life is what moves, one moment at a time. Take a moment to breathe and remember this truth. Time is not moving. You are. Every second is part of a journey that began long before today and will one day come to an end. But right now, life is happening.